Welcome to the Fervent Four. Did you know that only 4% of businesses ever cross the annual $1 million revenue mark? Hello, I'm Zack Miller, author of Anomaly. With me today, I'm my co-host Tim Ryan, lead man at StartWheel.org. Thank you so much for joining us. The Fervent Four is a weekly show each and every Thursday at 11 a.m. dedicated to sharing insights into growing a world-class business, no matter the climate. Now, there is this... I don't know, there's a mystique, there's this mythological, there's this creature that is among us, and it's known as NASA. And it just seems like there's this big mystery behind it where people might drive by it, they see the four letters, but they want to do business with it. There's NASA with mask, whatever it may be. I guess I need a NASA mask now. But there's so much that's kind of confusing, I think, to the business world, the outside business world about. There's so much to just the general public about NASA. You know, they see stuff going to space and that's about it. And they're like, NASA. But that's why we have Jesse Midgett here today. I got that right. I was thinking about doing it, Jay, but I didn't. He told me I could change the pronunciation of the last name if I wanted to, but I didn't. So, Jesse, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being able to tell the NASA tech transfer story.
So I think, you know, like I was saying, a lot of people think about NASA so many different things, or maybe just the spaceship side of things. When you think of NASA, how do you kind of define it?
Well, being a Langley guy and with my roots in wind tunnels, I started 19 years old as a wind tunnel mechanic. I go to those rusty old piping filled wind tunnel facilities, and it's a lot of very specific, somewhat obtuse grunt work to get us into the air and into space. It's not all the Chuck Yeager end of things. He's the tip of the spear, but the spear is a long thing that takes a long time to make.
How long is it? I want to jump right into the technology transfer. I mean, just like going to what Zack was talking about, in the sense of there's just this mystique, and you all have been producing and researching and perfecting all of this technology for so long. And who came up with the idea of, hey, what was the genesis of coming up with the idea of, hey, we can license this stuff out so other businesses can take advantage of the research that we've done?
There's been some federal acts, the Federal Technology Transfer Act, the Bayh-Dole Act, that say, hey, the people of the United States have paid to make these technologies, so they should be made available. So all federal agencies have some kind of technology transfer function. Our problem has been that we're just not very visible, and we're trying to do that, and the internet is helping with that. It's not so hard to find the right person to talk to anymore. Basically, technology.nasa.gov opens the door to you and gets you in through the right way that we can have our concierge direct you to the right person and get you the right technology.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting site as well. Everything is broken down into the different categories. Can you touch on some of the different categories that is, I mean, literally, if you want to shop for a technology or the ability to license or utilize the patents that you all have in place, what are some of the categories that you have outlined at technology.nasa.gov?
So without having it in front of me, we've got sensors, medical, structural propulsion, energy. I'm probably not getting the exact title right on some of those. We've got 15 categories, and actually many of the technologies will be in multiple categories. So you could have an aerospace sensor that will be in the sensor category and the aerospace category. I believe there are currently, and this could change multiple times a day, about 435 patents. And our patents are U.S. patents. Rarely do we go the distance for a foreign patent. Typically, if someone wants to go into a foreign country, they would have to pursue a patent there. And unless the patent is very new, that's not going to be possible. If you were to look on each and drill down to a technology on our site, and there is a patent number there, that's an issued patent. You can click on that and go up to the U.S. Patent Office site and read all the patentees language that you want. If there is no patent listed, that means it's fresh and new and probably less than 4 years old. And we're still in the process of negotiating the patent.
Those, if people go there, is it basically just Amazon for tech?
I wish it was that easy. Through the point of requesting the license, you click on a technology, you could ask for more info, you could apply for the license if you're sure you need it and you know everything about it that you need to know. Most people typically don't know. I mean, they have a write-up that shows how we think you might use it. Each of these patents was developed for a NASA purpose, and if you're going to do a commercial consumer pivot, that's going to take some additional engineering or tweaking to get that. So crossing that valley of death into a useful product from the theoretical prototype that we may have done is up to the licensee. It's never easy, but could be quite rewarding.
So NASA has. So let's walk this through as a layman. That would be me.
Sure.
Okay. So, okay. So I am a businessman, and I think that I can sell anything. I decide that I want to partner with the most powerful company in the world, probably literally, really, from a power perspective, in NASA. And I go through this website, and I decide that I want to be a part of that. So I just go, am I hopping onto the patent? What am I getting if I feel like I'm the right fit? What, as a businessman, what am I looking for when I come to be interested in the whole NASA tech world?
Well, you're going to need to have a understanding of the technology that you're looking for and be able to search it out of our portfolio, or you can ask for help if you can't find it. And then you're going to need to bone up on, your market case and do a lean startup methodology in your mind, in my opinion, to see how you would get from what NASA has to what the consumer needs, so you can start generating revenue and becoming viable quickly.
It's interesting that you said lean startup methodology. That's something that I wouldn't think that a big, I'm just going to say, government agency and kind of startup-y buzzwords would be associated with each other. Is that something that's you saying that, or are they saying that? Because I mean, historically, you think of like waterfall method versus the agile kind of world. It's very interesting to hear that word. I was not anticipating that from you today.
Well, we had an effort led by Christy Funk, who is the program head for the Tech Transfer Expansion Program, as it's called now, who made an effort to educate those who were interested in taking the training at NASA on the lean startup methodology. Jeff Johnson runs the Tech Center Accelerator in Newport News. He's a Virginia Tech representative, and we're all trying to spool up the ecosystems so that people can take these technologies. So a large number of NASA personnel, even though we're not being encouraged to spin off our own businesses, are being educated on lean startup methodology via the class predominantly led by Jeff Johnson from Virginia Tech. I took it probably 3 years ago.
I mean, it's the thing that's interesting to me is like LiDAR is one of the categories or some of the technology that can be leveraged. And I don't know how far back a LiDAR goes, but now in your iPhones, you have LiDAR in your iPhone. So that is now going to be something that is going to be more and more useful, and there's going to be more and more use cases for that. So it's interesting how far ahead you all are, because you're just interested in, we just want to do the research, we have our use cases, and then we just turn it over to the business world.
See if you can pull up the handheld spectrometer by searching in the search field. Imagine if you had a spectrometer in your iPhone. Handheld spectrometer. And the reason I'm picking that one is it's very far developed, more so than many of our technologies, which are, a design never prototyped. So the handheld spectrometer.
Thank whoever did the search on that I did not have to use another word other than handheld.
All right, great. Sometimes it works that way. We try to be out there figuring out what you're going to ask in the future, but we don't always succeed. So I'm going to go ahead and fess up. I'm a mushroom hunter, and it would be really cool if I had a spectrometer that I could pick a mushroom and point at, and it could tell me if there was amatoxin in it, assuming I can't identify it properly. Or maybe, there's always a degree of doubt when you identify things, but that's just, or how about you change your oil and you do a spectral analysis and it says there's a lot of bronze in there. Maybe you got some bearings wearing prematurely, that sort of thing. We don't really think about doing that at the house. Honey, where's the spectrometer? It's in the junk drawer. Oh, okay. And then I just needed to see what kind of oil this was. Or I got some paste out of the shed. I don't know what it is. It could be really a wonderful thing if it could be productized for the consumer.
Okay, so I've been using this thing called MyFitnessPal recently, and one of the settings on it is if you put your camera to a certain food, it's supposed to be able to pull it and say this is this is that. We think this is ground beef, we think this is ground turkey. I'm not saying they're the same thing, but it is interesting how you could find use cases like that. Is there in this specific thing? Is there? How is it pulling that, or is that kind of what the tech is?
This is not shape and color recognition. This is a spectrometer. So it shoots a laser and looks for the backscatter from the laser. It's not a pitch receive. It's backscatter that can tell you what sort of chemicals are in there. Because we can identify when you shoot nitrogen, it gives you this particular backscatter. Now, I'm not an expert on spectrometry, but so
is backscatter like the width of something, or like the viscosity between something? Like, is it
spectrometers actually respond to a chemical signature. Typically, the ones in the labs, I believe that they actually burn it at high temperatures, but it's actually looking for identifiable chemicals that it knows what the signature is. And I'm not familiar with exactly the internal workings of this one. I will say that.
You were the one who brought it up.
I am. I try to stay up on all 435 technologies.
Right. Somebody needs to do a little better. No, I'm just kidding.
Would that be something, a use case like the Mars rover? Would that use a spectrometer to analyze the components of what's on Mars?
It has a different unit on it that it actually takes a sample internally and analyzes it, more like a lab spectrometer, not so much handheld.
Gotcha.
Okay, so let's go back into the use case of this as a business. So I think that I can get this to market. I have interest in it. I send you guys a business plan, then you guys review and you guys accept it. Like, what are the next steps if I say, yep, I'm the right fit for that? I love having spectrometers all around and looking through all that. Like, what are the next steps and something like that?
Well, you kind of skipped over some steps. So let me take us back to the beginning. So you look at it, you identify it. You probably would click the more info and someone would reach out to you and then say, hey, I really still don't understand exactly if it's what I need. We might be able to find the inventor. Some of our inventors are no longer with us. So if we have an inventor we can tap into and his management agrees he can go back to what he was working on 4 to 20 years ago, then we can get a conversation like that. We can show you papers written on it, get those to you, all the publicly available information. We can sign an NDA. You can come out to the center, go to the lab if we still have it set up. A lot of times the labs have been changed for the new experiment and it's not there, but probably too deep in the weeds. Then once you've satisfied yourself that this is what you need and you want to license it, you would go in through the same website, apply now link on each one of these technology pages, and it takes you to the Atlas online application system where you get an account, and then you pick what kind of license you think you want. There's 3 basic types. There's an evaluation license that says, hey, I want to just try it on the bench, and we have 3 levels there based on what your needs are. It could be $2,500 for a year, or $500 for 6 months, or a no cost, depending on if we can justify that. And that entitles you to practice the invention, but not sell products or services based on it. The next level is the fits-all license, which is the commercial license, where we have a long list of terms where we can negotiate each one of those to suit your needs. And then there's a startup license, which is a special license. If you're a small company, less than 2 years old and US based, you can get pre-negotiated terms for a license where there's no cost to you for 3 years. After that, 4.2% or 3,000 royalty minimums on the out years for the life of the patent. We always strive for non-exclusive licenses, and we'll give you a specific field for your license in addition to that, so that we can hopefully broaden the use of each of the patents. We're not into necessarily giving right off the bat exclusivity in all fields, because our marching orders are to make it available to everyone that needs it.
And the stuff that you're doing, it's not, you're broadcasting this across the United States. It's not just Hampton Roads.
Mm-hmm.
Hampton,
we can also license to foreign entities if they substantially manufacture or practice it in the United States. As you know, a U.S. patent is good until the borders of the U.S., and then you're not in the U.S. anymore, and the patent is not in effect. We typically don't get foreign licenses, but if you catch it soon enough, you could pursue your own.
I mean, it's just, to me, it's just such a valuable resource, especially if you live in the Hampton Roads region, so that if you did want to take a trip to Langley Research Center to talk to the inventor or go to the lab space, I mean, it's just, wow, what an incredible opportunity. Do you all track data in terms of where the most popular locations are where people utilize tech transfer? Or
yeah, so there are 10 centers where you're equally lucky if you're close to one, if you want to travel to it. Of course, COVID has changed our ability to host site visits, but if you go to the technology.nasa.gov website, there is a link to metrics there, and there's also a link to NASA spinoffs. So the metrics show how we're doing with licenses and things like that are laying the groundwork for successes. And then spinoffs talks about the actual successes. So we write an article in conjunction with the licensee or the user of the NASA technology, and just to let everybody know what good has happened from the tech transfer activity. Does that answer your question in completeness?
If I remember right, is there also some sort of program that's in place where the inventor can be released for a short period of time, take a leave of absence from NASA to work with that business? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I don't know if I know that it's not part of the tech transfer program per se. Inventors and anyone at NASA can request a leave of absence to do that sort of thing. I'm not up on all the particulars. As far as leaving to go work on the technology, that causes problems because, or could potentially, we have to be careful that we're not seen as giving someone an unfair amount of help. We have to be very circumspect in what we do. If I have worked on if I was the NASA guy on a contract, I can't quit NASA and go right to work for that contract. So there's a lot of ethical concerns around that. And it shouldn't be necessary for that to happen. We should be able to get the company support through what we call a Space Act agreement, which allows, let's say you need the inventor's time. If the inventor and his management agree that they can spare him from his current work to work and support a licensee, we can either do a exchange of, it benefits NASA and it benefits the company, so we can do that. We can do it at no cost. Or if it's simply costing NASA funding to do this, we can have the company fund the inventor's activities to support them through a Space Act agreement. Space Act agreements are like a CRADA, which the rest of the government uses, but Space Act agreements, because NASA is special and has a lot of strange things that we do that other entities don't in the government, we have some extra flexibilities in the Space Act agreement that allow us to get our work done. And we typically will go to a Space Act agreement as the mechanism to support and outside activities.
You talked about COVID changing things up. I mean, it's been a while since that whole like craziness started. I mean, take me back to 2020, March 2020. Did immediately. What happened and what's happened since? I guess. I mean, it seems like it's been so long at this point. It's like,
Yeah,
I almost said
NASA
2 years, and I'm like, oh my god, like that's kind of crazy to think about. But like, how is COVID then? COVID now? Like, what's going on?
NASA, as you may have guessed, is very risk averse. So as soon as it became apparent how severe the pandemic could become if we all continued to hang out together, they said, y'all work from home unless you're mission critical. And if you were mission critical, you know, you were growing something in the lab and you needed to go and check on it, or you know, there's a critical need to run a piece of equipment, then those people continued to work with precautions. There was an initial period where there was essentially nothing happening on center. Then the critical people spoke up, and so we made whatever efforts we had to do to get the missions accomplished. But since then, I've been working from home, and actually my group is getting consolidated as far as office space size. So they said, if you don't need to come in and interact with equipment or people, just continue to telework. So that's what I'm doing. I actually have to go and clean out my rest of my office so that another group that needs to be on site more than I do can use it. I can go on site and take in a hoteling desk and use that as needed. They may go to where you're required to come in a certain number of days per week. Those sorts of things are still being sorted out, and there's a lot of, you know, we're trying to decrease our infrastructure as well and modernize it. So there's a condensing effort across Langley, at least, to be more efficient in our space utilization.
Is that weird?
No, go ahead, Zach.
I mean, are people freaking out that like it's weird? Like it seems like some people are like, I want to work from home. Let's do it. I want to do this for the rest of my life. And then some people are like, no. I want to go back into that thing. Like what? Like
if you wanted to go back into the office, you would speak up, and they would make a whatever adaptation they needed to the plan for you. And you say, I simply cannot work at home because I have 3 large dogs that bark every 30 seconds, which I almost do. One of them is licking my sofa right now. Anyways, they would let you come in and shelter at work so you could get some work done from your big dogs.
So the mission critical aspect of that, sorry, Tim, the mission critical aspect of that, I mean, people actually working on the actual technologies are typically in the office.
Yes, if you go by
people kind of documentation, selling it, etc., the admin aspect of it.
Well, there's a lot of, if you go by a lab or a facility, a testing facility like a wind tunnel, there are cars in the parking lot. Not as many as there used to be, but there are people there. If it's an office building, you know, just taking care of buying pencils, they're probably doing that from home. So yes, you go on center, it really, I would estimate 10% on site at this point. I think we're authorized up to 25%.
Wow.
But from my quick scan, and I haven't driven over the whole center, it looks more like 10% to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. I mean, that's for a government organization. I mean, that's a transformational change. I mean, that is that's really, really telling in terms of how different things have become just in the last 18 months.
Well, most needles, when they swing, have hysteresis, which means it goes this way, and when it comes back, there's going to be some lag. You know, if it went this way, come back, there'd be some lag that way. So, yeah, I expect it will eventually correct back to more on-site, but it will never go back 100% to the way it was, in my opinion. But we'll never know because, well, we may know in the future. So I can't say we'll never know.
Yeah, one thing that really interested your take. I personally feel as if technology transfer, everything that's going on with space right now, I mean, it's certain in terms of the privatization of space. I mean, I think the market is just coming to NASA. I think that like the most exciting days that NASA is going to face are just about. I mean, the market's coming to you. I mean, this is really, really exciting times that I see. I mean, just last night was a monumental event that happened with SpaceX. I mean, do you all feel that? You know, I mean, this is like what you all have been working for. I mean, it's really exciting.
So if you go back to the NACA days when NACA was helping people figure out how to fly, a lot of time we spent fixing the industry's learning pains, right? But if you could imagine you had to fly somewhere today, but you had to go buy your ticket from NASA, that wouldn't be the way you'd want to do it. So it's the same thing with space. If we're going to go to space, NASA doesn't want to be the only game in town. We want to enable industry and everyone to have access. So yes, we're in that second phase of flight, the space flights, trying to get that commercially normal.
I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, clearly I'm not asking you to respond to this, but I can only imagine the stuff that you all are researching now. I mean, it's like we're using the technologies today that you all were working on 10, 20 years ago. You know, it's fascinating to me. And, you know, it's exciting times to be alive.
So the law of marginal diminishing returns, you know, we make the big advances, but to make them standardized, reliable, that's a big push to get to that reliability level. So yeah, a lot of it is how do we just make this more routine? The shuttle we treated as if it was routine and it got us in trouble. So we're trying not to repeat that mistake. Everybody at NASA has to study the shuttle accidents and the things that led up to them so that we don't repeat those same mistakes.
Sure.
It's pretty interesting just to hear, oh yeah, we want multiple people in space. Just to hear that thought.
Well, to take that one step further, Zach, I mean, the reality is that when we were growing up, I mean, it was cool to be on an airplane. I mean, just to fly somewhere, and to think that our kids or anyone that's a child today, they're not just taking planes. They're going to travel to space. I mean, before their life is over, they're going to travel to space. I mean, to me, that's like uncomprehendable. I mean, it's bizarre.
There's a show on Amazon called Upload. I don't know if you guys have watched it. Tim, I feel like I've told you to watch it, but it's a show. It's a little weird to even grasp the concept, but it's basically right before you die, you can upload and this is a rom-com thing, but it's really just interesting. I don't know what made me think of this, but it's just like things that are unbelievable that are becoming believable. And so basically it takes your life and it puts you in this piece of software, and then you can still communicate with people as long as they pay the monthly subscription to keep it alive, if you will. And you're passed away, but up there, still living somehow, and you're still communicating with people down here. I mean, it's kind of, to me, as unbelievable as thinking that, you know, your kids are going to be able to go to space, and maybe someday we will too. Like, it's just like, wow, like this is, we don't have to like stuff on Facebook. We can actually go to space. This is cool.
I had a full circle experience with the space flight. My father passed away in June, and we were taking care of the arrangements, and they offered us 3 different space packages. Of course, he had already decided what he was going to do, but you could, for $12,500, have your ashes put out past the moon. For a lesser fee, you could have them put on the moon, and for an even lesser fee, you could just go into altitude called space. You know, you just barely into space, and that was pretty affordable. But yeah, it's definitely, commercial space flight is here. You can go to space, and your ashes can.
Which one did you guys choose?
He was cremated. Dad was a plumber. He was very common sense. He doesn't need to have his ashes in space.
Hey, you never know.
Well, I mean, it just, as you think about, as more and more people go into space, I mean, you want to talk about entrepreneurial opportunities. I mean, it's just once everything starts to get rolling, I mean, where you got to make sure you have a place to order your pizza when you're on.
Well, who owns the airways?
So space law is a thing that's really becoming discussed a lot. The legal field, is a NASA patent, is a U.S. patent any good in space at all? That's one of the questions we've run into, and I'm not prepared to discuss that. So, but the questions are being considered by the attorneys across the world about this same question right now.
I love your answer, and I mean, I didn't know the answer, so I mean, it's just wild. Like, these are wild things to think about. Like, hell, like this is pretty wild. That's
why I think the tech transfer program is the market is coming to you, because as people really start to accept the fact that this is reality and this is where things are going, you have already done all the research that's available, so that if you need to use the handheld spectrometer to find out that the cheese for your pizza is still going to be good, or and healthy, that that's there for you to do it. So I don't know. It's fun to think about, and it's tough to wrap your head around.
In that vein, you kind of talked about this before. Like, some of the inventors have passed away 20 years ago. Like, are you guys building things that are unnecessary? Like, how do you guys decide, like, if there's a market, like from an actual developing of the product standpoint, like 436 things on your in your e-commerce site, basically, to say, hey, like, here's this thing. Like, how are you guys determining, like, what you think is going to be valid and not, and how often does it never get picked up?
So the work being done is driven by, the earmarked funds that are sent down, appropriated funds that say do this work for these broader programs, which break down into sub-programs, and finally to, hey, we need a better sensor for this high temperature environment or something. So that's always the drive, is from our congressional assignments. We don't sit down and say, hey, can we invent something today that we can sell? That's not what we do. Now, we get many more inventions than we actually patent. In the past, we used to patent things because we could, and we thought we wanted people to know NASA was working in that area. Now we carefully consider, because patents cost NASA money. Some estimates are around $30,000 to get a patent, and it's about $15,000 more to maintain it throughout its life. So we have an extensive review that happens at the center and agency level to determine if a patent is necessary, because a patent is a limiting tool. It's a thing that limits who can practice something. It's not an enabling tool. When you get a license to a patent, that's simply an agreement. We won't prosecute you while you infringe, because if you're not the inventor and you're doing it, that's the definition of infringing. So everyone that's not the inventor needs a license. Actually, even our inventors do need licenses as well, because it's government-owned technology. Let me see, where was I going? So I liken it to, I'm a car guy, and if you're going to build a race car, it's only going to race on Talladega. You don't need to get a license plate for it, because it's never going to go on the street and be used to deliver pizzas or whatever we could use it for. So the only time we ever get a license is if, hey, we've determined this has got to go on the commercial streets, or it would be useful out there, and that we could potentially recover some of the expenses involved with the patenting. Now, I would estimate we don't recover everything we spend on tech transfer, because it's also our mission to transfer technologies. It's our marching orders from the Bayh-Dole Act and the Commercial Technology Transfer Acts, and things like that. So we put a lot of effort into determining. Then after we get the patent, every time a renewal fee comes up, we look at it again and say, has anybody ever been interested in this? Why should we renew this patent? And we're very critical about how we determine which ones we renew. It's an expensive thing to renew, and the budget, there's not necessarily a set aside for that. So it comes from painful places sometimes if we don't we get too many of these renewal fees.
Yeah, and I think that just transfer. It's just knowing that the transfer program is available. I mean, it's especially as the market continues to heat up when it comes to space and what you're going to and business opportunities. I mean, so if you look back at 2011 to 2014, the VC money that went into space was $300 to $400 million. In 2015, it jumped up to $3 billion, and then last year, VC money that topped at $10 billion. So I mean, you're going from 300 to 400 million to 10 billion in such a short amount of time in 6 years. I mean, so more and more people are going to be thinking about how can I structure a business around space. And
I'm surprised there aren't venture capitalists saying, hey, I've got all this money I've got to invest. I've got 435 NASA patents here. Why don't I hire 10 engineers and tell them to find 10 patents and make 10 businesses out of it?
Right.
Because really, when you wait,
no one's told them that. Maybe they don't realize it. Maybe you guys have done a bad job of hiding it. Like, no, I mean, I'm being serious, right? It's the first thing I said was, it's the I don't know what word I use, but it's like you guys are hidden, right? And it's people are like, well, how do I do this? So maybe they don't know. So I mean, you heard it here first.
Yep. So the biggest challenge for our licensees typically is funding. Now, they can try to bootstrap, but we all know how hard that is. Unless you've got really deep pockets, that's going to be difficult, or a lot of rich friends. And then so you're stuck with, hey, I know what I need to do, but how do I find the money to do it? Also, typically they may not have a company yet. So we all know if you've got a company and you're generating some revenue, the venture capitalists will be more ready to give you more funding to scale that and make them some more money. But getting across what we call the valley of death from the invention to the profitability part requires a bridge of money. And that's difficult for many entrepreneurs to find. They don't know where to look. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how much they got to give up of their company. It's just a difficult thing to build the bridge as you're crossing it.
Hampton Roads, the 757, Tidewater, whatever you want to call it this day. It's an interesting place. What are your just overall thoughts about the business community and how it could be doing a better job of leveraging kind of what you guys have available? Like, are we in a good spot? Are we not? Like, just your overall business your thoughts on the business kind of community locally.
Not really an expert in that area. But from what I've seen and read, so Hampton Roads has so much military presence, we're effectively recession proof because the money's still coming here anyways to do the aircraft carriers and the F-22s support that we do. So what we have is a pretty safe environment for businesses. There's always going to be money. Hampton Roads isn't going to tank. And that's really what I think our advantage is. Now, on the other hand, because of those things, we don't have a lot of entrepreneurial resources compared to places like Raleigh that I've looked into pretty in depth, because we can rely on that big government money coming in.
Is there something specifically like a Raleigh that you've seen that they have that it seems like we don't have?
Well, Raleigh has if you were to look at the numbers of accelerators and incubators, Raleigh's just got tons of them. Whereas if you go into Hampton Roads, there are some, but it's, handful or two. I compiled a list of all the Raleigh ones from my economic ecosystem, which I reported out to T2X on Raleigh. And I said, look, these slides are terrible. You can't read anything on them, but I want you to see how many resources there are for people in Raleigh. And I just threw like 3 slides of nothing but names of companies. And a lot of times they have a focus. One that stands out in my mind is Pinkubator, which is an incubator for female entrepreneurs. I'm giving them credit for having a cool name. So, I mean, they always have their niche. There's a lot of Main Street too, but really it's Main Street is everywhere to some degree through the local economic development organizations. And we have those in Hampton Roads too. Those are there. but it's just not as active.
As we talk about this, it takes me back to the time when Zack he interviewed Damon John for his television show back in the day. And one of the things that he had talked about, and Zack, you jump in whenever, it was the fact that, we should be taking advantage of the technology and the things that we have right around us, as opposed to trying to create something brand new and make our own mark on something. And
people say, hey, diversify the three thing, the military, tours, and ports. And I look, for a little bit, I've actually been in that bandwagon because I was just playing copycat early in my career. And I was like, whoa. Even before Damon said this, I was like, whoa. These are the things that we're good at. Why aren't we actually trying to jump on and be that thing for the entire world, instead of just saying it and be like, oh, let's create this new thing? If you really think about all of that is around water. Like, water is the key to all that. And so why aren't we doing more of that? And so, yeah, I mean, it's like, stop trying to create something new. It's like, you already have the thing, just go after it harder.
Yeah.
Right. And
also, you jogged my memory to mention about software. So one of the organizations that I met in the Raleigh area when researching there is Riot, the Raleigh Internet of Things accelerator group. I don't know if you've heard of them. So the idea is that, hey, we've got all this information around us. How can we use the Internet of Things and aggregate it and make life better for everyone? And if you look at a lot of the unicorns and the VC investments, everybody right now loves a good software investment that's taking information or from multiple places and bringing it together into a useful app. And those are the kinds of things they can scale real easy, because you don't have to buy the materials and build it and shrink wrap it and put it on a shelf. And to that end, NASA has even more software packages than we have patents. So as you know, software, you can't patent code. You can patent an algorithm, and we do have some software with patented algorithms that you would need a software release and a patent license for. But we have a software catalog on the tech transfer website as well, technology.nasa.gov. You can click on the software catalog, and those don't require a license typically, unless it's one of the few that are also patented. And there are a huge amount of them. Now, a lot of them are very esoteric, buckling in cylinders or crack propagation, or some very scientific, seems like so small you don't know, so specific you don't know who would need it. But those are there as well. They don't require the license agreement and the extensive paperwork and negotiations that can sometimes go into those. If you meet the qualifications for the individual software package, you can get it by simply requesting it. Now, some of them are government purpose only in there. So unless you're a government agency, you're not going to get it. A lot of them are US only because they, ITAR or things like that could be. I think there's no ITAR software on there, but export control is always a consideration. So some of them US only, some of them are government only, but most of them, and a large portion of them, are available for anyone to request. Yeah,
I mean, I hear so many people that want to kick the tires about entrepreneurship, and they're like, man, if I just need to come up with that idea. And to Zach's point, or what we were just talking about, is there's so many ideas that are right here. And if you look at the tech transfer program, you look at how the VC world is just pouring money into this sector. And then as an angel investor, or if you're looking to raise more money, the whole idea is to look to see where do you think the market's going to be in the next 5 to 7 years. And that's the stuff that you're betting on. And it's just like everything is in your favor. If you, and with so much technology and resource at your fingertip, it would just take a little bit of time to let me study up on this. I think that this is where it's going, and teach yourself so that you can create this business around it. I mean, it's just my word to advice to those people that are trying to find the idea. There's so many solutions that are right there.
Sure. So another thing to consider is when a patent expires or is not renewed, it doesn't mean the physical principles behind the patent stop working. It's still a viable invention. It's just not, protected with any kind of exclusivity. We did have, until a few weeks ago, we had a list of expired patents that NASA no longer maintains, or that simply just were out there too long. And that's all patents are that way. So if you're looking for inventions to commercialize, there's plenty of inventions out there that are unprotected. They're public domain that you can make money off of. Think about a wheelbarrow. Wheelbarrow was once patented. It's not. You can start up a wheelbarrow factory and make wheelbarrows all day. You can make fancy ones. So that opportunity is always there for people looking for ideas. You can go through the things that people have already made publicly available, because when you get a patent, you have to tell everybody what it is in order to protect it. You have to define your intellectual property through the claims in the patent. Those claims are still there. A lot of times they're superseded by new inventions. A lot of times they're not. They're just as good and just as useful as they ever were.
What from the NASA side of the house, and specifically with Hampton Roads, is there anything that you all have internally that have identified that, man, I wish that outside of the gates, Hampton Roads would do this? Yeah, is it a workforce development thing, or working with the colleges and universities that we need to start teaching more classes in X, Y, or Z?
Sure. Thanks for bringing that up. We have another program called Tech Transfer University, T2U. And that is simply, we ask universities to do capstone projects or similar projects with their students that are based on a NASA tech. So they might do a lean startup methodology application around a NASA patent. And we'd like to know which ones they're looking at so we can show our impact, as well as we want to hear what they have to say in case we decide to use it. We don't have any, anything the students produce, NASA doesn't own that. But I'm actually working with William & Mary right now. Going to be visiting them tomorrow to kick off a T2U project. So that is something we really would like to see more about, is conversations happening around NASA, its technologies, and how NASA benefits the country.
Yeah, I mean, because it's really interesting to me, and when you look at how much, as you said, how much military, how much government funding is in this area to make us almost recession proof. And with that, there is so much technology. And yet at the same time, when you talk to the business owners, the biggest struggle that they have is finding that tech talent to hire within Hampton Roads to keep everybody here. Yeah, to me, it seems like there's a disconnect between the talent that we have, the talent that we need to continue to produce in order to make everything work together. So that's really cool to hear about that program, because I had never heard of that before. So I hope that we can continue to teach at the college and university level the skills that are needed. And not even from an accreditation standpoint, even if it's just a certificate program or just the general skills. I mean, gosh, the amount of engineering and tech that needs to be taught to keep up with the demand is huge.
Although NASA's not recognized for medical technologies, we've done a lot. And when COVID, you asked about how it affected NASA when COVID hit. One of the things people did was they made some inventions that could be used to help people breathe better and treat COVID and things like that. Of course, those came back around through our strict review that would say, is this something that could become a viable business? We recently had a type of oxygen delivery system, and I won't get into particulars, that could replace or be an alternative to the plastic probes that go up patients' noses. Kind of a non-contact approach to that with the same efficiency. And we worked it with Mayo Clinic, and they're still doing testing on it. But if there is someone out there that is interested in that sort of product, developing that into a product, please send them my way. j.midgett@nasa.gov. And I'll put my email out there.
Awesome.
So convinced them to get a provisional patent, which is a temporary 1-year placeholder on that, so that I could try to market it, because I think it could benefit people. True, there are lots of other masks out there, but each use case is its own particular use case. And I think that even though it's doing the same job as existing things, someone may find benefit from doing it a different way, in the way that we've done it.
What's something that we haven't talked about that you think people need to know about?
Invention wise, or, well, I say, yeah, in general. So NASA is just one federal agency. NIH, Department of Energy are also huge tech transfer groups. They have their own flavor of technologies as well. A lot of our technologies are aircraft, flight, a new kind of thing to make an aircraft wing more efficient. If you think about, okay, how many of my buddies own an aircraft manufacturing company? I don't have any of my buddies that own aircraft manufacturing companies. And we all know the big players, and they like to invent their own things there. Their business plan doesn't include shipping royalties to NASA for a license. So I think in the past, a lot of our stuff was based on, hey, we're NASA doing this great work in the fields of aeronautics. Let's put a patent on this great invention, rather than, is there someone actually out there that would buy it, as a license? So the change, we kind of became more thoughtful about how we're doing this. And I think that you will see in the future, and this is my opinion, that we will be patenting less things and patenting more strategically. Right now, we have a lot of patents.
So, I mean, you brought something up. So is aeronautical technology, like wings and like that, is that still advancing?
Yeah, the bulk of the advancement in that area is, towards commuter type aircraft, also just efficiency. So we're in that really fine tuning area where the law of marginal diminishing returns is telling us we have to work really hard to get a little bit more efficiency. So we're trying everything we can to squeeze some more efficiency out of conventional aircraft, like commercial transports. But again, will the big manufacturers license them? And you may have noticed the winglets on aircraft, commercial aircraft. That's something that had a good enough business case that everybody's basically adopted it. As far as I know, NASA never got any licensing fees out of that. We do have a efficiency technology that's doing very well right now called TASAR, which is it's like Waze for commercial aircraft. It tells them where the traffic is and the weather, and brings all of the information that's already out there into one usable format to give them a way to tweak their flight path and save some fuel and time.
Do you see electric aircraft?
There's definitely a lot of work going on in electric right now. We have on our website, there's a patent for a turbo electric hybrid commercial airliner. Boeing or the other big companies haven't been knocking my door down for that. But it's there, the bulk of the electrical is in the small UAVs, which we're working very hard on integrating, getting ready to integrate into the national airspace so that we can all have, instead of waiting a whole 2 days for the thing we bought from Amazon, we could have it maybe in 2 hours. So yeah, we're working on in that area very hard right now, and that seems to be a very rich area of current experimentation.
What are your dogs' names?
That's Polly, who I call Sergeant Polly. She's a 90-pound Tring Walker Coonhound. And then I have Duke, who's a lab pit bull who eats furniture and houses and fences. And then I have a big fluffy newfie named RJ, whose specialty is being super affectionate. He just wants to be petted all day, and that's all.
Has it been nice being able to work from home and have the dogs there and everything? I mean, is that like...
It's definitely saved me some furniture. I've had the same sofa for a couple years now, which is nice, because I don't know if you've ever shredded a sofa around a room and then had to load it into your pickup truck and take it to the dump. It takes some effort to do that and then get another sofa. So I've appreciated not having to do that and or wire the fence back together as many times as I used to, because Duke is a ninja with incredible strength, and he just rips the metal fencing apart. So, but on the downside, I started walking them regularly, and they basically separated my right shoulder a little bit because I had torn my left arm with a motorcycling incident that shouldn't have been a big injury, but it was, and had surgery. And so I was walking 300 pounds of dogs one-handed. And after a couple of weeks of that, I started to get some shoulder pain.
Well, they wanted your other one to be equally as messed up, I guess.
Yeah. So then I'm like, well, great. Now both arms are injured. So I bought a belt and hooked them to my belt and walked them, but that's not exactly as comfortable.
There you go. Tim?
No, this has been awesome. I mean, I have a much better understanding of the tech transfer program, and we'll certainly share out your information.
Here, technology.nasa.gov. Thanks for posting that.
And
right on cue.
Yeah,
on top
please,
of
I mean, just a great opportunity, golden opportunity that people should certainly consider as they are looking to explore entrepreneurial ways. I appreciate your time.
Sure. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this and get it out to a larger audience. It's really is helpful, and I do appreciate the time.
Anything else you want to share, Jesse?
No, I mean, we've covered it. Shop around the NASA website, get a big coffee, see what's out there, and call us. We're here, right? So that contact us button is how you get to the real people behind the wizardry that you read about on technology.nasa.gov.
And you all are a lot more approachable than what people may think.
Yes. I will encourage you to have an attitude of patience, as sometimes the handoffs take time. And so the more patient you are, we will get to you as soon as possible. But it's a big organization, and for all the neurons to fire and get down to the one person at the end of it that really knows how that works, sometimes can require some patience on the customer's part. We're trying to do better at it. We've got a concierge at the agency level that hands it to concierge at the center level, and then to a technology portfolio manager who goes to the inventor, who goes to his boss, says, can I do this? And then we can get back to you.
I guess my last real quick thing, I want to ask Jesse, are you a fan of the meatball logo or the worm logo? Or is there a big divide amongst NASA with that?
Initially, there was some resistance when we switched back to the meatball. We had an agency administrator who did that switch and could not stand the NASA worm. And I remember having to be on an airplane scraping the NASA worm identity tags off of each of the equipment on the airplane in case he happened to look at it and fire somebody. So I actually think the NASA worm is cooler and more recognizable than the meatball. It's my personal opinion. But I'll go with either. I think that the meatball is a little Jetson-y with the swoosh, but it's just my opinion.
That's amazing how many people I see jumping out of the car to get their picture taken in front of that outside of the main gate.
Yeah. Yeah, we have one we've put out at Langley, I believe you're referring to, which is really neat to have. Yep. So please do that safely if you can. And that's what it's there for, that sort of thing. Selfies.
Selfie it up. Jesse, it's been awesome.
Likewise.
Looking forward to continuing the conversation ongoing.
Back anytime.
Appreciate it. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.
So long. Thanks, Jesse. We'll see you.